What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright, so before I get into this video, I want to give a shout out to, I think it's John Tez's, hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, John Tez's, with the $20 donation via the Cash App. And he asked me a question. He said, and I've heard this before, I think I've even done some videos about this before. And that is, what if the Bulls had played the Spurs in the 1999 NBA Finals? Well, we don't know. This is just a what-if scenario. This is a guess. But I suspect that this would have been the most challenging series and the biggest challenge in general for the Bulls dynasty. And there was a very real threat that this series would not go well for the Bulls. Because for the first time in the NBA Finals, the Bulls would be facing a team that had a dominant front court. That was not the case in 91 or 92. No knock on Kevin Duckworth, or 93, 96, or Utah Jazz. They never had dominant front courts. This team did. Dave Robinson, of course, and Tim Hardaway. Though by that time, Dave Robinson wasn't quite the same guy, but he was still a dominant center. Also, the Bulls were older. They were an older team. If that team had stayed together one more year, hypothetically, Jordan now would be 36, Pippen 33, and Rodman 38. Though Rodman did still seem to be pretty effective in the short stints that he had with the Lakers as far as production and the Mavericks before he retired for good. This is what I think. I think that this series probably would have went 7, barring injury. This series would have went 7. And I also think that this would have been a very ugly series as far as scoring is concerned. The combination of the era that this series has been played in, where defense dominated the game, scoring was down, field goal percentages were down. Plus you have a team like the Bulls who are older. Man, I think this has been a very ugly series. I think it probably, like I said, would have won 7 games. Now, we have to also remember that Michael Jordan probably, if things go the way they did, he probably wouldn't have even played most of that season because he injured his finger. So, I don't know how many games he would have played during the regular season. Which means he probably wouldn't even qualify for certain awards. But I'm guessing no more than 20 to 25 games because he had to recover from surgery. But on the flip side, that would have left him fresher. In theory, that would have left him fresher and maybe starting to hit his stride later in the playoffs. So he wouldn't have been as worn down as his teammates had been, because you remember that 99 season was very grueling as far as it was 50 games in a condensed period. Remember, sometimes it was playing 4 games in 5 nights, back-to-backs, way more back-to-backs than today. You know, these players complain all the time. So, you know, you have that. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I think the Bulls may have lost this series. If the only thing that makes me say no is Michael Jordan, but I have to look at certain realities. The 1998 Bulls were, on fumes. They were on fumes. Phil Jackson said that he needed a break after that season. Regardless of all the issues going on, or regardless of the issues going on with Jerry Krause, um, the only the only reason why I'm having like a doubt about it is Michael Jordan. But like I said, this is what I think. I think the series would have went seven. Whoever would have had home court, it would have favored. In reality, the Spurs went 37-13. Without Michael Jordan, I don't think the Bulls win 37 games. So I think home court goes to the Spurs, and it's quite possible that the Bulls may lose that series. And if the Bulls lose that series, then do we look at Michael Jordan the same? 6-1 in the finals. We don't look at him the same. Um, in order for the Bulls to win that series, I think that Michael Jordan and to a great extent Tony Kukoc would have to step up because Pippen just wasn't the same guy anymore. He just wasn't the same player. He wasn't the same Scottie Pippen from 1990 to 1996, 95, 96 into 97. He just wasn't that guy anymore. So I think Tony Kukoc would have to have a great series offensively for them. I think Tony would have to. Honestly, I think Tony would have to be that second scorer for them. Tony was never a great defender. He would have to be that second scorer for them. So in this particular series, I think Tony Kukoc has to start, and I think he'll have to be a stretch four and be that mismatch on the offensive end, though it would hurt the Bulls defensively with Duncan. I think they'll just have to let Duncan do Duncan. I think in that particular series, Duncan would have to just concede Duncan. I think Rodman goes on Robinson a little bit more. Although you could argue that maybe that wouldn't work because Robinson was playing more in the high post and Duncan the low post, so maybe that wouldn't work as well. But I'd rather have Robinson shooting jumpers than, going off in the post against the Bulls. So, yeah, I think I would have Rodman defending Duncan, defending Robinson, whenever the situation presents itself. If Duncan has to average 30 points a game, so be it. But Tony Kukoc will have to be featured offensively in this series, I think. He'll have to be the second leading scorer. Michael Jordan have to carry this team, man. That's the only way I can see it working. And he would not shoot very well. Not with those shot blockers. Not with that team. It would be an ugly game, man. Like it'll be like one of them games where the final score is 84-81. Jordan might have 35, but he had to take 39 shots to get it. I'm serious. It'll be a ugly way of getting the points, but he have to do it. You have to go like 14-39 or something. It'll be ugly basketball in some ways, but that's the only way I could really see the Bulls winning, and somehow the Bulls bench will have to step up. The Bulls bench will have to step up. But there's one thing that bothers me about this. Steve Kerr was on the 99 Spurs. Steve Kerr was on the 99 Spurs, so I guess that means in this scenario, he's not on the Spurs, he's on the Bulls. So that's an advantage. Spurs don't have Kerr anymore. Just give him, I don't know, maybe they'll just sign Craig Elof to, I think Elo retired after, 98? So I guess they signed Craig Elo for one more year or something. Yeah, and give the Bulls Kerr. Yeah, that'll work. Or maybe Scott Brooks or something. And but yeah, that's what I think, man. I you know what I'm saying, I think this will be the biggest test for the Chicago Bulls. Um, you know, Popovich versus Jackson will be a hell of a coach matchup. Um, yeah, I think it goes down. I think it goes to wire, and you know, Rodman would have to show up as well. I think Dennis Rodman would have to be productive as far as rebounding is concerned. I think have to average minimum 14 rebounds a game in this series. And I think also Luke Longley would have to step up offensively by his standards. I think he have to average double digits. Spurs, they'll have to try to you have to limit Michael Jordan, but stop Scottie Pippen, and that'll be easier because Pippen's not the same guy, and Pippen's not a great jump shooter. So it'll be easier to stop Scottie Pippen. If Scottie has one of those series where he's shooting 30% from the floor and only averaging 12, that's not good for the Bulls. But if he somehow happens to average more around 18, 19, God forbid, 20 points a game, and he's shooting around 42, 43, 41%, that bodes well for the Bulls. And that sounds low, but for that era in Scottie's game at that time, that'll be a good percentage. If he's having one of those series, then the Bulls might win it in 6 somehow. But that's just my take, you know. My instincts tell me, like, everything's even. It favors the Spurs, especially because I think they'll have home court advantage in this scenario. But if Mike comes out and plays well by the standards of him being an older player by then, if Pippen comes out and plays well, if Tony Kukoc plays well offensively, and they could ride Kukoc coattails for a bit. Because another thing I'm concerned about is when Michael Jordan is not playing, like when he's on the bench, someone has to be scoring offensively. And it'll have to be someone like Tony Kukoc. And, you know, and by Tony being a facilitator, he can get other people involved as well. You know what I'm saying? Pippen can kind of play off of Tony in some sequences, and vice versa. So the Bulls had to. Another thing the Bulls had to do too, and to win this series, they got to get them some fast break baskets, some easy baskets, some transition baskets, like steals. They got to work on that. Mike, Pippen, even Harper, Robin, deflect some entry passes, things like that. They got to get themselves some easy turnovers, some easy baskets, because it's not going to be easy to score against that Spurs defense in the half court set. So anyway, that's just my take on it, man. Tell me what you guys think.